Welcome to PTE Updates. For more videos, subscribe our channel.
Hybrid electric vehicles, fuel cells, large capacity wind generators. These are all green energy technologies that require pure rare earth elements to function, to make them in their manufacture. The 17 rare earth elements are not that rare, but they have a particularly similar chemistry among them that makes separation and purification of the elements especially difficult. China currently holds more than 95% of the global rare earth supply chain. This includes mining, separations chemistry, and manufacture of components. In 2010, China cut their exports of rare earth elements by about 40%, in a shift away from an export rare earth economy to one where they use the elements internally for their own green energy projects. This provides a tremendous opportunity for chemists. In my lab, we're working on fundamental research of rare earth elements that will contribute to an inexpensive and effective rare earth separations chemistry. We expect that our discoveries will contribute to a new U.S. domestic supply chain of rare earth elements that will enable discoveries that will enable the growth and continued growth of green energy technology in the U.S. Thank you.
Lying your way to the truth. The point of science is to tell us the truth about the world. Sure, it lets us do useful things like make iPods and blood pressure medication, but ultimately, what gives science its special value is that it lets us, small and insignificant creatures that we are, find out tortuously and indirectly what the world is really like. But there's just one problem. Many scientific claims are lies. Naturally occurring populations don't follow Mendel's laws, markets often don't clear, chemical bonds aren't really composed of shared electrons. The models and theories from which these ideas are derived contain intentional distortions. In other words, they're false. So how can we learn the truth amidst so many scientific lies? Well, here's the answer. Lying, or what I should really call idealized models, can still get things right where it counts. They can focus our attention on the most important causal factors in a phenomenon. They can reveal the deep analogies between different phenomena. They can point the way to truer theories. We shouldn't accept such models naively, but we should look for their areas of overlap and convergence. Science lets us find out the truth at the intersection of independent lies. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Rome exerts an almost mythical pull on the imagination. It's the universal specific, if you like. It's the place that we all go back to compare ourselves, to measure ourselves, to test ourselves. Images of Rome, therefore, are both good and bad, both positive and negative. Certainly America's founding fathers thought the former. We see eagles, we see fasces, we see the Roman political system, we see Latin pen names. For America's founding fathers, Rome was a model of sorts. But the model that tends to exert the imagination most is the fall and the decline and the collapse of Rome. But by asking, are we Rome? Are we going to fall? We place our own concerns about our own lives on a bigger stage. So the question that I leave you with is this: is it, are we Rome? Or is it, why have you asked?
Anthropology in the 21st century can't escape the hardship of the lives of its research subjects, who have been disproportionately raked through the coals of globalizing processes. Ever larger proportions of the world's population survive precariously today in refugee camps, rural wastelands, zones of ecological devastation, shanty towns, housing projects, tenements, prisons, and homeless encampments. We face an urgent challenge to combat useless suffering. We need to document, analyze, and render visible to a wider public the ways large-scale social, political, and economic forces devastate individuals and their communities. The commitment of social medicine and public health to serving vulnerable populations, combined with anthropology's intensive research method of participant observation fieldwork, and its analytical sensibility of cultural relativism, positions us, as scholars, to develop a theoretical and practical understanding of the ways inequality creates politically structured suffering. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Dennis. There are 5 interrelated reasons why you should share power. First, to prevent war, to bring it to an end, and to prevent the recurrence of civil war. Secondly, because you comprise more than one nation or people inside your state. Thirdly, because the possibility of simple majority rule gives rise to tyranny of the majority, the dominant nationality or ethnicity. Fourthly, you should share power because power-sharing democracy is more effective and fairer than its opposite, winner-takes-all democracy. In power-sharing democracy, human rights, minority rights, women's rights are better protected, and into the bargain, your economy is managed better. Lastly, you should share power because of the alternatives. The alternatives are war, genocide, ethnic expulsion, coercive assimilation, coercive integration, tyranny of the majority, tyranny of the minority, and bloody and divisive partitions. Next questions.
Achievement is not normal. People differ from one another on innumerable dimensions. Many traits follow a bell-shaped or normal distribution. Height, for instance. There are outliers, yes, but even the very tallest man in the world, at 8 foot 5 inches, is only 1/3 taller than the average man. However, the distributions of objectively measured human accomplishments are typically extremely skewed, with a very long right-hand tail. In so-called log normal distributions, most of us are clumped together at the very low end of the scale, with a small number of outliers besting average performance by a factor of 2, 10, or even 30-fold. These include number of scholarly publications, number of paintings hung in major art museums, and the frequency with which an author's work is checked out of the library. The log normal distribution of accomplishment is a clue to its mechanics. If achievement requires many different capacities, each of which is normally distributed, then only a rare few individuals will have it all, so to speak. It is not enough to be very, very talented, or very, very self-disciplined, or very, very determined. To be an outlier in human accomplishment, one must be, at the very least, all of these. Thank you.
Many Americans, often, though not always, on the right, like to think of the United States as exceptional. America, they tell us, is a land uniquely devoted to individual liberty, unlike the socialist dystopias of Europe. Whatever one makes of this idea, there is at least one way in which America is truly exceptional. We have treated health care not as a right, but as a luxury to be enjoyed only by those who work hard enough to earn it. This changed just over a year ago with the passage of the Affordable Care Act, which aims to provide insurance to the more than 40 million Americans without it. If this act can survive numerous legal challenges, then America will have ceased to be exceptional, joining other nations in treating health care as a birthright. If the act is undermined, however, then the United States will persist in its exceptional disregard of the common good, providing inferior care to fewer citizens at an exorbitant moral and economic cost. That's the kind of exceptionalism that no country should be proud of. Thank you.
So my talk is on water and future climate change. We're currently causing irreversible damage to our planet by dumping CO2 and other greenhouse gases to the atmosphere and warming the planet in the process. As a consequence, we're changing the water cycle at an alarming rate. Changing the water cycle and warming will result in fundamental changes in the circulation of the atmosphere. In the coming decades, storm tracks will move poleward. Typhoons and hurricanes will become more intense. In places where it rains now, it will rain even more, while places which are dry will become even drier. Desertification will become a very important problem in the middle of continents. The Asian monsoon will bring more rain to India and Bangladesh. Luckily for us, we have the oceans. If we didn't have the oceans, the planet would warm much, much faster than it presently does. This is because it takes a lot of energy to change the temperature of water by even a tiny bit. Additionally, million microscopic plants living in the oceans absorb CO2 from the atmosphere and store it in the ocean. Without the oceans, atmospheric CO2 levels would be much higher, and the current climate problem would be much more severe than it already is. So after all, it is good to have water around. Thank you, water. Thank you, oceans.
So hopefully this won't count into my time. I have a modified title to make it a little more positive. It's The Life, Death, and Rebirth of the Mississippi Delta. Life. 8,000 years ago, the global rate of sea level rise slowed as ice sheets disappeared. The modern Mississippi Delta was born as the river pumped sediment into the ocean faster than the rate of sea level rise. For thousands of years, a delicate balance was maintained. Land sank up to 1 centimeter a year as mud compacted, while sea level rose slowly. These were balanced by deposition of sand and mud during floods. Death. Dams in the upper portion of the river now strangle the delta's sediment supply. Artificial levees prevent flooding and the replenishment of sediment, and global climate change is causing accelerated sea level rise. Meanwhile, the delta just keeps sinking. Rebirth. There is simply not enough sediment to stop the erosion and drowning of most of Louisiana's coastal wetlands. But maybe we can save one very important part, the city of New Orleans. Sinking of the city cannot be stopped. However, there's a possible plan to divert the meager supply of Mississippi sediment to grow a new mini river delta in the bays around the city. This would help to protect New Orleans from hurricanes and storm surges. Many people would ask, shouldn't we just abandon New Orleans? My response to that is, have you been there lately? Thank you.